Hi GarageBand fans, it's Dr. Watson with a GarageBand tutorial. This time on a feature I've been meaning to talk about for a long time now. It's GarageBand's drummer. The drummer is kind of like an artificial intelligence percussion track. It's better than loops because loops are static or they stay the same, and you have to put in a lot of different loops to convince the listener that they're not hearing a real drummer. Whereas the drummer is a little easier to fool the listener into thinking they're hearing a real drummer. So if you don't want to take the trouble to set up microphones and actually record a real drum set, this is a great alternative, and it's hard to tell if it's done right. It's hard to tell that you're not actually hearing a real drummer. One thing that's really helpful if you're using the GarageBand drummer is to diagram the song you're going to do using the arrangement track. So in the track menu you can say show arrangement track, or if you have the arrangement track already shown, you'd turn it off by saying hide. But I've shown the arrangement track, and I've added these using the plus sign. I've added these sections to show that I have an intro, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. The reason that's helpful is when I create the drummer, you'll see that the regions will correspond to those sections. So let me go ahead and put the drummer in the middle here. Go ahead and hit the plus sign, and over here where it says drummer, I'll choose that and say create, and here is the drummer. So notice that the regions intro, verse, chorus, they correspond with my arrangement. Also, there's an area down here where we're going to choose different parameters, what instruments we want to play, how complex we want them to play. Do we want fills? Do we want it to swing? Do we want subdivide eighth notes, 16th notes? There's a lot of parameters you can choose, but the first decision is to choose which drummer you want to use. Under each of these styles, like rock, alternative, songwriter, R&B, electronic, hip-hop, and percussion, there are actual named drummers like Kyle, Logan, Anders, Max, and so forth. When you float your cursor over each drummer's name, it tells you about that drummer. So for the ballad that I'm using as an example for this tutorial, I've decided I'd like to use a songwriter genre or songwriter style, and I'm going to use Darcy. Now if I float my cursor over Darcy's name, you'll see that it says she's tasteful, restrained, and dedicated to serving the song. Darcy plays simple, tasteful pop beats on a natural-sounding kit. And that's kind of what I wanted, a light, not very complex drum part. So we'll go with Darcy. And now I'm going to close this window just so we have a little bit more real estate. Okay, and I've decided that during the intro, I don't want any drums at all. So I'm going to just delete that region. So the first time we'll hear Darcy play will be during verse 1. Now, down here I could choose some preset drum patterns where all of these parameters to the right would be chosen for me, but I'm going to just leave it on custom. This first area here where it looks like I call it a hockey puck, and you can move it north and south or east and west. Simple is all the way to the left and complex is all the way to the right. So if you want complex sounding drum parts, you leave it over here. Simple over here or somewhere in the middle. If you want loud, you're high, or soft, you're low. So let's say in the this first verse region, let's just say that the opening of my ballad I want to be kind of soft and simple. So I'm going to leave the puck down here. And let's not even have any bass drum or snare drum or hi-hat. Let's only have cymbals. So here's where I'm choosing what instruments are going to play during my verse. So just cymbals. And do I want any drum fills? Well, let's either put it off or very low. We don't really need to have a lot of drum fills early on. So now what you're going to hear at the beginning of the song is an introduction with a two-measure introduction with no drums, and then you're going to hear this simple pattern that Darcy's going to play for us. Let's listen. And then I can just listen, and if I wanted it softer, I could drag the puck. If I wanted it more complex, I could, But I think I'm happy with the way it is there. Just very light. And we get to the chorus, we'll amp things up in the next region. Here's a little fill. Right. Now, the reason that fill was there is because I had left the fills on. Now, I think I'm going to move this to eighth note subdivision. Not that I thought it was all that active, but you can change the subdivision. Something I may or may not use in this demo is I can ask the drum parts to follow one of my instruments that's already recorded. Like if I wanted it to follow the piano, choose that. A lot of times you have the drums follow the bass, so you could choose the bass and then the drums will play their rhythms around the bass or with the bass. The bass wasn't actually playing in that intro or in that first verse, so it wouldn't matter. But for now, I'm just going to leave that off. I just wanted you to be aware that's something neat to experiment with. Okay, let's go into our chorus. And in the chorus, let's say we're going to have, I'm turning off this auxiliary, just like I did in the opening. I didn't have any auxiliary percussion. So for the chorus, I'm still going to keep no tambourine or shaker or any other auxiliary. Fills maybe we'll bring up a little more than they were before, but not that much. And let's go with hi-hat instead of cymbals. Let's keep our kick on. Let's try the first pattern there. That's maybe a little bit louder or complex than I want. So let's maybe move it. It was about here before. Let's bring it up a little bit, but I don't want it to be all that complex yet. Let's leave it on 16th subdivision as opposed to, it was 8th during the verse, so let's keep it to 16th. All right, so let's see what that sounds like. Here's the end of the verse. And now you're going to hear the drummer change its pattern. It's a little loud. I'm going to pull it down. Notice when I pull it down, it sounds more like a cross stick rather than an actual snare sound. I don't mind it being more complex, I just don't want it to be that loud. And because we have our fills up, you're going to hear a little more fills. Like that fill. Okay, now we're going to go into the verse, and you'll notice the orchestration opens up. Okay, so since the orchestration opens up for this region, let's go back to cymbals, so it's a bit more open. Let's choose a different cymbal pattern. Let's go back to eighth notes though. Let's up our fills even more. Let's do we want to add? No, let's not add any auxiliary, but let's take the volume up a little bit and make it a little more complex. All right, so let's hear our verse now. I'm going to try the end of the chorus. Okay, and now a little bit more complex. So it sounds like the drummer is actually changing in time as the arrangement changes. So the listener would think they're hearing a loop for a while, but then when that fill happens, they know it's not a loop. Okay, so now we're going to come up with the chorus. Will be our biggest section so far, this chorus coming up here. All right, so how about in the chorus, let's go ahead and add that tambourine. A very active tambourine. Let's put it all the way over here in 3. Let's bring our fills all the way up. Chorus we'll put on 16th note, yeah. And let's keep it as complex. Let's go for as complex as it can be and see what that is. We may want to pull it back, but we'll try it. All right, so now let's hear the difference between that. Right, tambourine's in. So that's basically it. I do want to just mention a few things. For instance, as the song continues, you want to add some more regions. So if you float your cursor to the right of the region at the end, you'll see a plus sign. Click the plus sign, you get a new region. Another thing you could do is option drag an existing region, and you'll duplicate it so that if you want to have the same settings, just option drag. That's a great shortcut to use. Also, if there's ever a section that you'd like to divide, for instance, in the opening verse, which was very simple, let's just say halfway through that you wanted to have some kind of change, you can actually option drag and then use different settings. Like for instance, say we wanted more fills on that section. So the first one has low fills, the second one has greater fills. Sometimes you divide, even though the arranger track has 8 measures, you can divide it in 4 and 4. Okay, GarageBand fans, hopefully you've enjoyed learning a little bit about the drummer. Now go ahead and experiment. When you might have used a loop, why don't you try using the drummer and see if it doesn't give you a lot more expressive qualities in your drum tracks. Have fun.